What's up, girlfriends? Welcome back to another episode of Shameless Ambition, the podcast. I'm Lindsay Dalen.
I'm Justine Eno.
And we are coming to you this week from Zoom because we have just been sucked into the twilight zone of sick kids, life stuff, all the things. And this week we want to talk about what it's like being moms and juggling all these things, because this is something we haven't really talked a lot about on the podcast yet. Like, we've talked about our kids, but never like
Yeah.
the
I
mom
mean, it's come up
of.
in like weird portions, right? Of like, we'll be talking about something and something will come up, but we've never like really dove into the whole conversation.
No, I mean, we focus so much on like professional development and personal development, and but the fact of the matter is that a lot of our audience are moms, and they have to juggle the very real reality of kids in the mix. And it looks so different for us as women and moms because we're raising kids. And I don't know about you, babe, but sometimes it is just exhausting. It's so hard sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, like shout out to the stay-at-home dads because I know those are out there too. So I mean, they're relevant in this conversation as well. But yeah, being, and I don't want to say the priority parent in like a bad way or like a shame on the other parent by any means, but being the parent that's always on call
Yeah.
is hard. Um, yeah, it's hard. I don't know what other way to put it because you just have to do it.
Hmm.
So you just do it.
Love the way you said priority parent, though, because like that really is a great way to distinguish, who we are to our kids and what we do for our kids.
Mhm.
And sometimes the dad is the priority parent, but I mean, for us as moms and in our households, we are the priority parent. And so
Yeah,
when the kids get sick, our life stops, like it's when the
100%.
exactly. And so, like, I mean, I've been just in the thick of it for the last 5 days. And I am actually getting to the point where I have like a bit of a trauma response when the girls get sick because it's like, I know I'm about to go down and it's going to be just like a suck hole for at least a week. And it's so mentally challenging to stay calm and patient and kind and on top of all the things.
Yeah, I actually like, well, I was sick last week and praying I didn't get my kids sick. Like I was the one who brought the germ in the house this time. And because you I would rather be sick myself than have my kids being sick because when your kids are sick, it's like you're sick because you have to still surrender to everything
Yeah.
and they don't listen. I mean, well, mine Aspen's so little, like I can't blow her nose, right? Like she just runs away from me. So yeah, I don't know. Everything gets put on pause. And thankfully for both you and I, like I'm more of a stay-at-home mom in a sense of like what I do, right? I mean, obviously we have these other passions, but that is like my main hat. You are an entrepreneur, like you are, doing all your businesses yourself. So we're so fortunate that we ourselves are the boss. So if we call in a sick day, it's okay. But there's a lot of women out there that um maybe don't always have like the most understanding employers too, right? Of like,
Absolutely.
my kid's sick, like, you can't send them to day home or daycare or school if they're sick. Um, well, you shouldn't. That's my public announcement. Don't send your kids sick.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like lots of women lose their jobs or lose a promotion or get like sidelined for a promotion because they have kids because the kids always come first. And that's a really shitty reality that we have to sit in sometimes. Cause I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. Obviously, we're not gonna take back being moms. Like that's our favorite thing to do, but
Like,
it's hard.
well, it's the ultimate responsibility. And so then when you have responsibilities to an employer on top of that, it really is so hard. And thankfully, you're right. We are in the position that we can kind of just put everything to the side when we need to and make decisions based on what our family needs first, because we work for ourselves and we've set up our lives that way. But I remember the times when I did work for other people, and calling in sick was like the most stressful thing in the world. I just would feel sick about it myself because I was letting somebody down or I was wondering if I was being judged. And really, I
Or you
just,
almost feel like you have to send them like a video of your kids being like puking sick and be like, see,
I
they
am
really
not
are.
kidding,
Like,
right?
yeah, like, yeah, I don't know. It's tough, right? And it's the unfortunate reality too. Like once your kids are in like a daycare up level,
Yeah,
spring, fall, like these sicknesses always hit. And we try to remind ourselves, but then they come to our house like a tornado. And
totally. And they
yeah, I
rip through the house and just like destroy life as we know it. It's just
yeah.
wild.
And
It,
it's one after another, usually, right? Like at least if we could all get sick in the same week and then just like that was it. But it's like one gets sick and then the next one, and then it's just yeah, it's hard. Um, and yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of guilt. I think you mentioned like you used to feel really guilty calling in. So there's guilt on both sides of it, right? And there's guilt when you have to like leave your kids at home sick, if
mm.
that's the case, if they're older, right? And you can leave them at home to still go to work. There's guilt on so many levels, just guilt of being mom guilt. No matter which road you travel, there's mom guilt. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, though, I think at the end of the day, if we can put our kids to bed and they know that they're safe and they're loved, whatever else happened in our day, like that was a successful day. We were a good mom that day. We're not
Mhm.
always perfect, right? And I think that the weight of all these things can add up sometimes, and maybe we don't be the best mom that we want to be in that day. And we take out our frustrations and our stresses sometimes, especially when they're sick, because everybody's just so exhausted as it is. But yeah, mom guilt can be a real thing. So
So yesterday, this is like, oh, anyway. So my
lay it
nanny
on me.
is sick right now because I got her sick. So, or Aspen did, or whatever, right? So we
Yeah,
got her sick. So she's taken some sick days. So that's totally fine. So I'm like momming hard right now, and the girls had dentist appointments yesterday. And I was anticipating being able to leave Aspen at home with Angie and just take Aria.
right.
And of course that didn't happen. So I'm like, okay, I have like a toddler in the dentist office and like
Awesome.
a right. And I don't even know what you call Aria's age, like preteen in
Yep.
the freaking dental chair. And she hates the dentist, so she's already like a basket case. And I'm trying to like Aspen wants all the power drills and like all these things. And I'm trying to keep my calm because I'm in public. I'm like, if I was at home, I would not be keeping my calm right now, but I'm in
Right.
public. So like I can't lose my shit. So we get through it, we get home, and I get Aspen down for a nap, and like the baby gate fell, and like a baby gate falling. And I was so irritated in that
Oh,
moment
no.
from like everything that had led up to that baby gate falling. And I literally took the baby gate and like chucked it across our kitchen floor.
Oh,
Just because
wow.
I just was like in a moment, right? And
Yeah.
I just chucked it across the floor. No one was there, like in the way of the baby gate. And Aria's just standing there, like looking at me. And I'm like, I need a minute. So she just like goes to her room. And then, but we had a really raw conversation about it after, right? About like, why I was feeling that way and why I reacted that way and a better way to react and like the healthy conversation after. But I
Yeah,
mean, we all have those moments, right, where we just literally lose our shit because we take so much in a
totally.
day.
Yeah.
Again, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or you're a working mom, you take so much in a day. And by the end, by that like 6, 7 o'clock mark, you're out touched, you're
Yep.
overstimulated, you have like kids yelling, TVs on, whatever going, and you're trying to like cook supper and like it's just a excuse my language, it's a fucking zoo. And you're just like so overstimulated, you explode.
Totally.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just the ride we're on, to be
Oh,
honest.
that overstimulation though, like that is a real B. I
Yeah.
hate feeling overstimulated. And don't get me wrong, as a woman, I feel like my brain has this capability to run in multiple windows and like I can handle multiple things. But what really just like if anything makes me feel anxious, it's feeling overstimulated. And it's like, then I'll hear just one loud noise and it's enough to, I probably would chuck the baby gate across the kitchen too, like it's just the one thing that just makes you
We
snap.
should preface it with more of like a slide across the floor throw. Like I did just like
Maybe it
overhead
wasn't stuck.
chuck it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't break anything. The baby gate's still alive. But
Oh,
no, it's I think what there's a huge difference between being overstimulated and multitasking.
yeah.
I think overstimulated is more of like external things coming at us all day. All day. Like it's like, I don't know, it's like someone throwing rocks at you all day and finally the rock just like hurts enough or something. It's just usually I like will be so honest. Usually I take it out on Tyler, like not even knowingly, but he'll like come home and he'll always be so nice and like want to give me a hug. And I like look at him and I'm like, I cannot be touched right now. I
Right.
cannot be touched by another person. Like it's not that I don't love you, it's not that I don't want a hug, but right now after like Arya getting home from school and Aspen all day and the dogs and the cats,
Mhm.
like literally I can't have another being needing something from me in
Yeah.
this moment
Yeah.
because I don't. And you can
Totally.
wait.
Exactly.
Right? Like it's kind of like, but it doesn't always like come out that way. Sometimes it's like, I don't want a hug. And then I like walk away. But yeah, it's hard, right? Like it's hard.
Well,
I feel like a prickly porcupine sometimes, but
Well, I'm with you on that one, babe. Like, I yesterday morning lost my shit on Mike, and it really just came down to the fact that I was so overtired, overstimulated, just exhausted. The girls had been sick all weekend. He was out of town, and I'm sick. So nobody's taking care of me, but I have to take care of these two little humans while I'm trying to just get better myself. And then you throw Maisie's blood sugars in on top of all that, and it's just like, God. And yesterday morning, I was like day 3 of absolutely 0 sleep because Sophia's cough has literally just kept the entire house up, and yeah, I was just cranky yesterday morning. What a brutal way to start a Monday, but thankfully I had my little mental breakdown and I apologized to him and he told me it's okay. I understand, so I appreciated that, but we do take it out on our spouse sometimes because we don't really have anywhere else to direct that energy. We don't want to take it out on our kids. And if we do, thankfully, we're
my
pretty
poor
good.
dogs.
Yeah. Rufus, come
Well,
take a
I do
breath.
cuddle them, I promise. But yeah, no, it is. I told Tyler actually yesterday, so I called him after I threw the baby
Yeah.
and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, just try to calm myself down. Just had a moment, right?" So I explained it to him, and he kind of like laughs, like, "Okay." And I was like, "I think we might need to put like a javelin output thing, like in track and field out in our backyard, because like that might be really healthy for me. If I feel like I need to throw something, I can just like chuck a javelin and feel
Yeah.
good." And he's like, "Well, there is a punching bag," and I was like, "No, like I need to throw. Like that's for me. Like when I get to that feeling of like." I'm boiling over. I feel like I need to throw something
Oh, wow.
instead. Like, and Tyler's like, "We'll go punch the punching bag," and I'm like, "That hurts me. Like, it hurts me. I need to get something out. Like, I don't want to hurt myself in return." But yeah, I don't know. I think we all have like our own little things how we explode, right? It all looks a little different, but
I didn't
um,
guess that you throwing a javelin would be your way of decompressing. Now I'm just picturing this in my head and I love it.
Miss Trunchbull from Matilda, just like getting her shot puts out.
Chocolate. Yeah. Oh, man.
Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I just I don't want to say I see red because I don't, but I definitely sometimes get to a point where I'm like so like over everything in the moment that I feel like if I don't explode, I'm gonna like die. Like I feel like it has to be like a release of some sort. Um, but that's just me, obviously.
So
But
much.
yeah. Pardon?
We carry so much. Like, it's just,
We
it
all do, yeah.
can't just sit on our
Yeah.
shoulders forever. Like, we have to find ways to decompress.
Yeah, I even like I mentioned the other day, I'm like, it's hard to like to walk around your house. And this is like something I can relate to with any mom that works from home, or is a stay-at-home mom, is like you never get to leave your job,
Right.
right? So it's 24/7. Um, and you live in your job. So it's like you walk by a room and it's like, oh, look at like all of the things you have to do stand out.
Mhm.
Every time you walk by a room, it's like, oh, I have to do that. Oh, I have to do that. Oh, there's that. And it just feels like this like mountain starts to build on you of it's never gonna end. Like
Right.
the to-do list, the things I have to do. It's just where's the time? It's never gonna end. Um, I've actually, I think it's because I'm pregnant. Um, and like knowing it's my third, and really soaking in the moment of like the kicks and those things. I've really surrendered into Aspen these last few weeks, and that's been really special. And like a silver lining in the chaos is that sometimes it's actually gotten so chaotic, and this has never happened to me so far yet, up until now in my life, that it's gotten so chaotic that I'm like literally fuck it. Like I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. It's like this is it. Like it's just all clean when they go to bed, and I don't know. Like it's just it's chaos. So I just like lean into it, and then we end up like sitting on the floor reading a book, and I'll like,
Right.
10 minutes later be like, okay, like whatever. The rest doesn't really matter. Um, yeah.
That
So
reminds me of a conversation I have often with my sister. She has two little ones, and they're 2.5 and just turned 1. And she was so used to being such a hyper productive, busy person that the reality of like the amount of stuff you can get done when the kids are around is not nearly the same. And so I really had to share with her, like, Candace, your kids need a happy mom, not a productive mom. And like all of these other things can wait if that's what's needed for you to feel happy. Like, soaking up those moments with Aspen are priceless because before you
mhm.
know it, she's not going to seem so little anymore, right?
She
And
won't want to sit in my lap.
right, she's a busy girl. She's got things to do and people to see. And but no, I think that we have to be able to give ourselves that grace to just enjoy our kids and lean into them because the time really does fly by and we've got our whole lives to work. And the house can stay messy for a little bit longer than you
Yeah,
anticipated. So
100%. It's just like letting go of the right things. And
yeah.
sometimes I think that, I mean, we're so conditioned. Like we live, until you have kids. I was 24 when I had Aria. So I lived 24 years of my life, um, always like having like needing to clean, but being able to clean and
Yeah.
building those compulsions for myself, which can be healthy or not. But then you have kids and you have to learn like, to like lean into those and let go of the other things. And it's okay, I think. But it's a process of learning what to let go of. So,
Exactly, and prioritizing that, like, as far
mm,
as, "Okay, dude, if you saw my floors right now, you would die." They are so bad, and, like,
oh,
walking around on them for the last couple weeks, just like, "Yep, gotta wash these suckers," but I just haven't had the energy, I haven't had the time, it
make sure
just
you wear socks.
exactly, right? I just washed my socks, and, but yeah, as much as I know I need to wash my floors, I know that I need to get healthy. I know that my kids need to get healthy. I know I need to stay on top of work to some degree so it doesn't stress me out. Like it's just kind of easy for me to just be like, okay, Lindsay, your floors are the least of your worries right now. Like they're not going
Totally.
anywhere and they're just going to get dirty again anyways. So like chill out. They'll get cleaned eventually.
Yeah. No, and that's it, right? You just like gotta let it go. You gotta let the messy bathrooms and the dirty dishes, you gotta let them go, right? And I mean, that's tough though. It's tough. It's tough. Yeah, yeah, that's
What do you think that the hardest part of being a mom has been so far in life? Like, what kind of challenges you the most as a mother? And I mean, I know we're talking about all the things that we juggle. So, like, aside from that, what do you find the hardest part?
I'm so scared I'm gonna mess them up. Like honestly, like yeah, I mean, it's like my biggest fear. Like I never, I never want them to look back and be like, oh, I wish my mom played with me more, or I wish we would have done more of this as a family, or I don't want them to have that. I want them to have the happiest childhoods they possibly can. Yeah, so I guess I want them. I'm worried about like me or like my faults messing them up because I have them, and we've talked about how like our parents have all failed in some ways. They've succeeded in way more ways than they've failed. But we do, as like a parents now, we sit and we look at what our parents didn't do or what we wish they would have done, and that's okay. That's how we break cycles. But I can't help but think, what are my kids going to have to break the
Right.
cycle of, right? So I think, yeah, I think that's the hardest part that weighs on me, is just making sure that I don't mess them up too bad.
Oh, oh, girl, just like tugs right at my heartstrings because
Yeah.
you have such sweet, kind, nice kids. You're doing such a great job. They're not even remotely messed up. They're living a beautiful childhood, you know,
Oh
like
no, I don't think they'll be messed up. I just don't ever want them to like look back and wish their childhood had been shaped differently, right? So and that like goes back to what we were just talking about, is like surrendering into the moment. And I have to remind myself of that, of like, Aspen isn't going, or Aria is not going to remember how much I clean the floors,
right.
or how much, you know, like poop stains were in the toilet. Like, they're
Yeah.
not going to remember those things. They're going to remember me sitting on the floor laughing and reading them books, or like taking them out and doing something. That's what they're going to remember. So that's that's how I like, I worry, because I do personally get so caught up in chores, because
Right.
that is like part of our job, right? Like, I say all the time, like, if I don't do the laundry literally will not get done in my house. Like,
That's
everyone else will go to the last pair of
yeah.
underwear and then be like, are we getting more, or like,
Yeah.
so it's just,
Is somebody gonna
that
recycle
just,
those?
yeah, like, do we order off Amazon? Like, what's up? Yeah. So, like, if the toilets don't get cleaned, nobody will clean them. It doesn't bother anybody else, or no one else thinks about it. Tyler's really not that kind of person. So if they don't get done, if I don't do them, it never gets done. So that weighs on me. But I have to just remember, like you said, it doesn't really matter if they get done or not. So, that's my biggest struggle, is like trying to like let that go. And then obviously the fear that comes along with it. But I would like to return the question to you. Try not to cry.
Right?
Just kidding. I
Oh, I mean, honestly, there's a couple things that I find to be really, really hard about being a parent. And I mean, I mentioned on our last podcast of 2023, Maisie's diabetes, that I wanted to share a little bit more about it this year. And I think now is the time to just kind of dive in a little bit to what a dark journey that has been and can be sometimes. Like, the fact of the matter is that at 21 months old, I was, the mother of a critically ill child. Like, Maisie was 21 months old when she was diagnosed, and I had to learn how to account for absolutely everything that goes into her mouth. And I've made so many mistakes along the way, and it's been really scary at times and continues to be scary at times. And you understand because you've had her, you've taken care of her for a
Well,
long
those mistakes are like diabetic coma or seizure. Like,
time.
like, they're
I
not
guess.
like, oh, we
Like,
have to do some like therapy. It's like
no,
a
exactly. And
lot of, yeah.
that's kind of like one of my biggest fears in life, is that I'll make a mistake. Maybe I'm too tired. I don't think it through. Maybe I've had one too many beers and didn't think it through, or I told her the wrong thing, or it is such a massive weight to be responsible for running my daughter's body, and it can be
Yeah.
exhausting sometimes. And thankfully, I have an equal partner in the sense that Mike is so present and available, and he's diabetic as well. So it's like I have this like resource right here. But, I remember a time when I accidentally gave Sophia a needle in the middle of the night because it was just muscle memory for me. She was having
Totally.
a
Yeah.
sleepover with Maisie, and Maisie's sugars were high. So I just rolled in at 2 o'clock in the morning and just put a needle in an arm and didn't even realize it was Sophia. And I freaked out. And I went barreling into our bedroom and I was like, Mike, what do I do? And he just laughed. He was like, honey, she has a pancreas. It works. She's going to be fine. And I'm like, oh
Might
my,
wake up really hyper.
right. But it's just like the constant attention
Oh
and
yeah.
energy
And
that,
I mean, like, I'll add in there, like, Maisie is like a zombie. So like she does in her sleep. Like, she doesn't
totally,
even
she doesn't even notice.
wake her up to do her insulin in the middle of the night. And I was like, oh no, this girl is gone. Like, she just like flops out her arm, and it's routine for her,
It
right?
is.
So But I mean, even you sharing the story of how you guys found out she was diabetic is so crazy. And like, I couldn't imagine, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's just, yeah, it's crazy.
it was such a trip, and I'm just so thankful that we caught it in time and that Mike knew enough
Yeah.
to check her blood sugars. And but it's like I never imagined being the mother of a critically ill child, and it's like I almost hate using the terminology critically ill, but it is the fact of the matter. And it's she'll never get rid of diabetes. She will never be cured, not in this lifetime, I don't think. And it's as she gets older, as her body changes, her hormones change, like, that's what I'm scared of. Like, honestly, managing her as a kid has never been easy. This kid has spent so much time in the hospital throughout her life, whether it was for diabetes or broken bones or whatever. Like, she's my hard child in that regard. Um, but as
Oh,
she
100%. Oh, like I
yeah.
even just think about them and I'm like, oh yeah.
I mean, Sophia's my emotional child and Maisie's just like my hard child, right?
And
And
me and Soph are like, I mean, I said to you the other day, I don't even know where we were. I said, Soph will run away to me. Like when you guys fight, she'll just like run down the road to me and we'll just like have anti cuddles because we're so emotional. Like I'm emotional with her.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love the kids, obviously. But yeah, and Arya's and Maisie, they are great together because they're both hard.
Our
That's
hard
what
kid.
she
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So, no, I worry about, yeah, Maisie is a teenager, Sophia is a teenager. Like now that they're 11 and almost 9, I worry about things like the internet. Dude, I feel like that's gonna be our biggest challenge as
Well,
mom.
and so here's the funny thing. I had this argument with a parent the other day, and I'm like so open, you know this about you just parent how works for you as long as you're not obviously harming your kids.
Totally.
Um, and Aria does have access to internet in our house. Like I'm not gonna lie. And we've just went with the avenue of internet safety,
Right.
and teaching her that versus banning the internet because I look at it kind of like cell phones when we were younger, or even like MSN, or I think I'm still 5 years younger than, so I don't know if you were on MSN, but our parents hated it.
Right.
Like even just that opening of the portal, they hated it, they didn't understand it. And we were like, oh no, it's fine, all naive. So I think that, in my opinion, it's not going anywhere, but damn, is it scary. And
Oh,
it's like hard to have a conversation with a 9-year-old being like, okay, that person might not be that person. They might be like a creepy person who wants to like kidnap you.
right.
Like that's a hard conversation to have with a 9-year-old.
I think it's just like a different version of like the stranger danger conversation we grew up with, right? Where it was
Yeah,
like, oh, like if somebody comes up to you at a park and you don't know them, like you don't go anywhere with
run
them,
away.
tell them anything, run away. And actually, now that I think about it, that's not really a conversation I've ever even had with my kids because
Oh, I
they
have with Aria for sure. Because I'm like, she'd go. If someone's like, I lost my dog, she'd be like, oh, I'll come help you find it. So I'm like,
that's true. Um,
we've definitely had that one, but
But like with the internet and just online predators and stuff, like I agree, my kids have access to the internet. They can Google things, they can look things up. I don't let them sit and crush YouTube like they used to. But for me, the biggest thing is social media and just putting some hard restrictions in place as far as when they can have that because I just feel like they need to be mentally and emotionally mature enough to handle it for what it is. And I need them to love themselves first. I need them to know who they are first because you need to be like social media aware and smart and strong, to be honest, to be able to handle the shitstorm that social media is.
so I've said countless times, my 16 to 20-year-old self is so thankful that
Yeah.
social media was not what it is
Oh,
now
me
back then
too.
because
Yeah.
oh my God, like that would be ugly for me. So anyway, but we got to live in a more free time where, like we could go out to the bar and make jackasses of ourselves and we weren't worrying about someone documenting it or taking it the wrong way and then being labeled something that you're not. It's so yeah, they're growing up in this, like, in my opinion, overly sensitive
Yeah.
world. and then social media on top of it where they're being judged constantly, um all the time. So yeah, Ari asked me, actually, this is funny, Super Bowl. She has a friend, a family friend of ours. They have a daughter and she's older than Aria. So I think she's Sophia's age, I think around, in that preteen era. And again, teach their own. So her parents let her use certain apps that I'm not down for, but I know that that's fine. And Aria was staying at the game and she texted me because she does have a phone. And she texted me and she said, "Hey, mom, I need the password to your Apple account." And I'm like, "Well, no,
Yeah.
there's a reason there's a password, but like, what do you want?" Because I could have downloaded it from mine and, whatever. She's like, "I would like TikTok." And I'm like, "Well, no."
That's gonna be a
Right.
hard
So
one.
yeah, and then I got the cold shoulder for like a week, I think, from her. She was so mad at me, and we had to have a conversation, right? Of like, you're just not old enough.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many dark things that you can fall into, or like bad examples, or yeah, they start comparing themselves. Like, I think I still was playing with Barbies at 12.
Oh, me too, for sure. Absolutely.
Not, I was not comparing my body to it. I don't think. I mean, I think that definitely came later in life for me, of like the magazines and stuff, but still we had magazines and other girls to compare ourselves to. It wasn't like airbrushed and filtered
Well, and
everywhere we looked.
can't escape it. Like, once they're on
No.
social media, they can't escape, the judgment and the comments and the criticism, and their young brains aren't mature enough to be able to discern what matters and what doesn't matter, you know? Sophia asks me all the time for a YouTube channel, and I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Well, you have a YouTube channel." And I'm like, "You can have a YouTube channel when you're 15 and you can have social media then, and you can use social media to express your creativity and share with the world. But until then, I will show you how to use social media properly and how to understand it for what it is, because I feel like I've had to go on my own journey to become mentally strong with social media, and, like, I'm still learning so much about it myself."
Oh yeah, I was just about to say it's ever evolving. Like there's a new freaking, app or whatever that comes out every couple of years, like
Mhm.
Snapchat, TikTok, like all these things, and then you have to relearn what that is. And um yeah, I was showing Aria. Aria asked me the same thing. She asked Tyler, and obviously Tyler's like way more like, yeah, let's start a YouTube channel. What do you want to do? Like, and I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, so I gave her an example. I said, Arya, look at my YouTube account. And she's like, okay. So I gave her my yoga YouTube account and she's scrolling through it. She's like, hey mom, you only have like this one weird person that comments on your video. And like shout out to this person because like you're weird, whoever's commenting on it, if you're listening to the podcast. I have no shame in saying that. But this person, I'm gonna assume is a male, but maybe not, comments and he'll like timestamp my video and be like, nice glutes.
Oh, ew.
So creepy, but my videos are public.
Yeah,
So I can't delete the comments, right? And so it is what it is. But I showed Aria, I'm like, so my videos, honey, I'm like, they're nothing to do with anything. Like mom's fully clothed, like, like there's no need for this, but that's all that I'm getting.
right.
So what do you think you're gonna get? Like there's different spaces, that they can put themselves out there if that's what they're wanting to do. But that's again my opinion. But yeah, it's the scariest thing. And so yeah, I just try internet safety is my go-to there, and like being really honest. And I think that this is something that I'm not in agreement with a lot. Like lots of people will diss me on this, and that's okay. But I'm so open with Aria,
Yeah.
like unbelievably open.
I think
Anything she wants to ask me, and I will tell you the truth. So no joke, last night I'm making supper. I don't even know how the conversation got up. Oh, I think she was like wanting to watch Jimmy and George, or Georgia and Ginny or something. And
yeah.
I was like, well, some really inappropriate things in there, like, and she's like, it's like sex, mom. And I'm like, yeah, like
Yeah.
sex. And she's like, yeah. Have you and dad had sex? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's how you make a baby. So we've at least done it 3 times.
Yeah.
And she like laughed and just
Yeah.
like walked away. But then she had like all these questions about it. And so I'm not the parent that like shies away from the conversation though, because I want her to ask me. because I don't want her to go to school and ask a friend who doesn't really have the right answer and then gives them the wrong answer. And then she thinks one thing is another thing, or, I want to know where her mind's at.
I totally agree with you, babe. And I think that it's so important as moms that we are open with our kids and create a safe space for them to talk to us about anything because
Anything.
anything. I want my girls to come home and talk to me about anything that's on their mind because I want to give them the right answer. Like you said, I
Mhm.
want to make sure that they're well informed, that they've had the space to ask as many questions as they'd like, to learn and grow and I want them to just know that mom's got their back no matter what.
Mhm.
Like no matter how you're feeling, whether you feel weird or stressed or anxious or nervous or because growing up is hard, right? Like being a kid is
So
hard.
weird.
You're learning about so many different things every single day, and it's our job to help them make sense of those things, and we can't do that if they're not talking to us.
Yeah, I'm like to be so open and honest. Not that I'm usually not. But anyway, um, so like my mom left when I was like 9, I think. So I did, and I had older sisters, but they were already moved out. So it was me and my dad. Like I got my first period with my dad,
Yep.
had the virginity talk with my dad. Like all those things were with my dad, which is obviously a little different because he had no idea
Yeah,
what was going on with me. Um, but I think that, and this is not on him or my parents or anyone, but I think of having lack of knowledge about sex and boys and friends, like girlfriends, how to work through that, um, really made me learn some things the hard way
oh,
because
yeah.
I had to learn because no one told me or gave me the heads up that I even trusted. Really, if someone told me, I was like, man, whatever. So yeah, that's what I want to do differently, right? It's hopefully that they feel open enough to come to us before they do the action, whatever that is, to a friend, or if it's partying or boys or whatever it looks like,
Yeah,
that they come to us with the question first and we can at least give them the options and the repercussions for both and then let them make the decision
totally.
from there. But yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine what that was like not having that female role model in your life, and, your dad's such a rad dude that, like, I love your guys' relationship so much, and it just he killed it with
Oh
you,
yeah.
obviously, but just to have
Yeah.
to be able to go to your mom and say, "Hey, mom, I'm curious about this," and to have her be able to make some sense of it, or at least point you in the right direction. Like, I'll never forget telling my
I
mom.
was oh, you go, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go, because it's hard on Zoom because we have like a second delay. Okay, so you were telling your mom. Okay, keep going.
Uh, when I was younger, I told my mom I wanted to go on the birth control pill, and we had always had a very open conversation about sex and what that meant, and, the deal was that I would tell her when I was ready to start, and so I told her I wanted to go on the pill, and she said, "Well, what kind of questions do you have about sex? Like, what can I share with you?" And I was just feeling awkward and weird and, like, here I am, this is like I'm in love with somebody and I want to take this next step, but I don't know how to talk to my mom about it. And she could tell that I was feeling weird about it. So instead of forcing this conversation on me in a weird way, she scheduled an appointment with a public health nurse for me to go talk to a complete stranger, but at least somebody that she knew was wildly educated in the topic. And so for
And
two
like safe ways.
in a safe
Like,
way,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And so within 2 hours of talking to this nurse, I got a sex education and came out of there feeling so much smarter and more enlightened and not weird because I was never gonna see this person again, and so I think that that was one of the most powerful things my mom ever did for me was realize that maybe she wasn't the right person to give me that information, but then find the resource that was, and that's something
But
that
so good that you guys had the relationship that you still went to her in the first place. And then she's like,
totally.
okay, let me facilitate this for you.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's absolutely like kudos to your mom for that because that's really amazing.
Well, and that's what we're striving for, right? Is that open
Mhm.
relationship to say, "Hey, this is big life stuff. Please come talk to me," like, I don't
Well,
expect.
my biggest regret is, or my biggest, I guess, for regret was me, but fear for Arya too, with like in regards to, like sex and sex ed or all my kids is that they say yes when they want to say no,
Right.
right? And like this conversation's a big conversation that's been brought up across the world. And thankfully, like I'm so grateful that um as I mentioned earlier, I feel like the world's more oversensitive now, but at least with that, people are talking
Right.
about their experiences and what they've went through. And so I feel like the world is a lot more open
Yeah.
about that than they were when, and obviously we didn't have social media when we were teenagers. So um but to really like have their voice, right? Because how many times in your life, and this is rhetorical so you don't need to answer, but like did you say yes but you wanted to say no? And I
Right.
never want that to be something with my girls. Like I need them to know, like if they don't feel it, if it's anything, not even sex, they just say no,
That's right.
you know? And yeah, so that's powerful for sure that like we make sure that they know that. And yeah.
Well, and that's our job as their moms, right? Is to be that representation of strength and confidence and courage and bravery. And, if they see us just giving in to absolutely anything and everything everybody asks of us, just being yes women in whatever regard that might be, then that's what they're going to grow up to think is the expectation. It's like, I think it's good that they see us make mistakes. I think it's good that
Mhm.
they see us freak out sometimes, have to apologize sometimes, like, they're
And
seeing.
apologize to them. Like, I think that's a huge thing that, like, some people don't ever, they're like, "Oh, no, I yelled because 'cause I'm your mom," or "I said so," and I'm like, "Well, no, like, you still gotta own up to it." Like, you have to say sorry to them
Yeah,
too. So, yeah,
apologize
key
all
points.
the time when I feel like, I should, and it's just an acceptance of the fact that I'm not perfect, I'm going to make mistakes, but it's also demonstrating to them that it's like, "Hey, made this mistake, this is how I handled it, now it's time to move on, and life goes on." Because I think that developing those kind of just like self-awareness tactics nice and young in them is what's going to help them have that courage and strength and bravery to say no to the things that they want to say no to and to stand up for themselves and to have a voice. And I think our girls are growing up in such a different time where like it's different from how we grew up, it's different from how our parents grew up, and I don't think that we should ever forget that, because if we assume that everything's supposed to be the same, it like we're just setting them up for failure.
No, I agree, and I feel blind in the world they're growing up in, like,
Right.
and I'm not gonna share, this is their stories to share, obviously, but even, like, with Maisie and Aria, I know what happens in Maisie's day, and you know what happens in Arya's day because they share their days almost every day. But
Right.
even the things that they're going through and the grade that they're in, it blows my mind because
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
been
what
a crazy year for that stuff, hey?
is it like? Isn't this? Shouldn't we be like 3 years ahead? Like, and this stuff happening? Like, why is this stuff happening so early?
Right.
Um, like the puberty starting earlier for kids. Like, it's just all these things that we have to be like super conscious of like their world does not look like our world did.
Right.
It's a whole new lens. So if we're trying to parent them from our lens of our world, it's not going to work.
Well, and isn't it so crazy that it's just like as we move through our days and as we design our lives and we create our dreams and pursue our ambitions and all these kind of stuff, we're having to keep up with such a fast, rapid changing pace all the time as it is. And then to try
Mhm.
and parent kids throughout all of that and all the other stuff that's like changing by the day, it's no wonder moms are overstimulated, overexhausted, like under
Well, it's
care.
trying even to like regulate their emotions
Yeah,
while regulating mine. I'm
totally.
like, there's like three sets of emotions going through my house right now. Who gets to go first?
That's right.
Like it's hard. And I mean, I know your girls are at that age, but I have already at that age too. And I mean, man, that girl is a basket of emotions. And
Oh,
it's just like me, but I can internalize mine, like I can work through mine mentally.
yeah,
I don't know how to work through hers because I'm just like, so I'm like, okay, go take some space because that's all I can really like,
right.
sometimes if there's nothing nice to say, we need some space.
That's
But
right.
yeah, I think it's tough. I think whether you're a mom to girls or boys or both or a stay-at-home mom or a working mom or whatever that looks like. I mean, like this hat of mom is the hardest job in the world.
Absolutely.
And it's not explained. It can't be explained. And it can't be, I think that's maybe the hardest part too, is like we try to explain it to people who don't know or try to explain it to our partners, but it's unexplainable. Like it just has to be lived to be understood.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Only moms get it. Like, really, only other moms get it. And we are, this tribe and this club of women who are just trying our best to raise the next generation of human beings to be
right.
kind and productive and, contributing members of society.
My biggest, like, if anyone could take anything away from this episode is like, remember, if even if you're like out of chapter, like 1 and 2 and 3 of being a mom, so your kids are older and whatever, if you see a mom in public just struggling, just like love her.
Love her.
That's it, right? Just remember when you were there, right? When you had like a screaming toddler or a screaming newborn who just shit their pants, or a toddler who just peed their pants, or whatever it looks like, or just a mom throwing a baby gate across the floor, like whatever it looks like. Instead of going into that instant like judgment and being like, holy fuck, they should get their shit together. Excuse my language in that sentence. But instead of going through that thought, like giving them compassion, like ask them if they need help. They're probably going to say no, but ask anyway, or say they're doing a good job. Because that's sometimes all that they need is to know they're not alone or
Yeah.
being judged.
Well, and every
That's
mom.
my biggest takeaway because we're all there.
Exactly. We're all there, and every mom has a different version of hard, whether they are, like at that infancy stage and toddlers and that kind of stuff, or maybe they have a teenager that has an addiction problem or a baby on the way before they should. Like it's just, I don't think that being a mom ever is just easy. I think that no
Easy.
matter
No.
what, you're going to stress and worry about your kids and hope that they're okay and they're going to try every ounce of your patience till the day you die type thing, but
This is a side note before I have a long quote today. It's only like it's about 2 minutes. It is a bit longer though.
I love that you.
But
Oh, yeah.
but that's just reminding me you said this, like you're always gonna worry. And so when was it? It was when we went to Kelowna for that gala. My mom was like, hey sweetie, do you mind sharing your location with me just so I know like you make it there and back okay?
Yeah.
And I was like, of course, sure, mom. And then I got back and she's like, do you mind just keeping it on? And I
Oh,
was like, yeah. And she's like, well, no, it's just like sometimes in my day I like to look at where you are and just like, no, you're okay.
yeah.
And I'm like, I'm looking back and I'm like, oh God, like 20-year-old me would be like, mom, get a hike, like, or get a life, like take a hike, like you're not following me. But now as a mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, if my kids gave me the permission to follow them around their
Oh,
whole life just so I
yeah.
knew they were okay, that would make my heart so happy. So share your location with your mom if you can.
Every
It'll
once
make
in
her
a while, like if I'm traveling, she'll ask me to do that. And
yeah.
but no, I mean, my mom is always just happiest knowing that all three of her kids are happy and healthy. And I actually don't really think she worries about us too much anymore, which is really nice because there were a
Oh,
lot
I
of
bet
years
she
that
still
we gave her a
worries.
lot to worry about. So
She knows you guys got it.
oh yeah, no, like from where we started to where we landed, we're doing pretty darn great. So
That's so funny.
but no, I mean, I don't think a mother ever really stops worrying about her kids and her grandkids and her family. And but everyone has their hard. Everyone has their hard, and it's nobody's alone, although it can feel super alone sometimes, but you know,
Yeah, it's a complex thing, right? There's that weird word that I use of like duality, right? To it. Like you feel alone, but you're not. And it's
yeah.
just, yeah, it's tough, but it's okay. We're in it. And um yeah, find a community, like you said too, right? Like find some other moms that are in the same chapter as you if you need to kind of like really
It's
lean
like,
into it.
how great has it been to have each other, especially over the last week when we've just been in the shitstorm of like sick kids and just like all these different competing priorities. And in the meantime, we're just texting each other like, what do you need, babe? I got you.
Yeah.
Sending funny, TikToks and videos just to kind of keep each other feeling light and
Just
bright.
even like acknowledging like I see you. Like,
Exactly.
I got you. I see you. I hear you. Like it's not, you're not overreacting, you're not being a baby, you're not, it's validating. It's that validation that sometimes you don't get, that you need, of like, it's okay,
Yeah,
and it's huge.
it is.
So yeah. Are we
So
ready
let's
for the quote?
close it out with the quote to all the
Okay.
moms out there.
So this quote fell into my lap a couple weeks ago, scrolling through TikTok.
Love it.
And I tried to actually type it and find it online and I couldn't. So I had to go back to the video and like pause it and write it out and pause it and write it out.
Nice. Aw,
But so this poem is from a book called From One Mom to a Mother by Jessica Ehrlich. And I actually think I'm going to order it. It's off Amazon because this poem is like on point, but bear with me, it is a little long. So it's
okay.
called Mom Things. If I could go back, I would tell her as, oh, and sorry, it's things I would tell myself as a new mother. If I could go back, I would tell her that one day she'll look back once the fog has cleared and realize that those days were filled with magic. The type of magic you only see long after the trick, the beauty, and then the bittersweet. I tell her that the memories she'll lose herself in won't just be the milestones, but those long nights. She will never forget the pain of the fatigue, but the nostalgia of color will color her memory and she'll find herself aching to breathe in those cuddles once again. I tell her about the tears that each day and each cry she is learning. I'll tell her that I'm not just talking about her baby's cries. I'll tell her that she'll have alone time again, but it'll feel like two hearts wandering in different directions. She'll ask if it will always feel that way. I'll tell her I don't know yet. I'll tell her that her eyes will close and the sun will rise, but in between those moments, she'll feel so alone in the company of the stars. I'll tell her that each one of those stars is another mother feeling the exact same way, and that she is actually never alone. I will tell her that she doesn't need to be a perfect mother, and the moment she believes there is such a thing is the moment she believes she is failing. I'll tell her that she is moving mountains even when she loses her footing, especially when she loses her footing. I'll tell her in some ways it gets easier, but for every first, there is a last. The hardest part is not realizing until after that chapter is closed and you're turning back the pages, trying to pinpoint when you forgot to say goodbye to that mispronounced word.
Aw.
I'll tell her it isn't a typical love story. Motherhood is the raw, unedited version with all the outtakes, which is what makes it the most beautiful love story of all. I would try to describe the power of the infinite love she will feel, how it will consume her, scare her, and comfort her. That a love like this is a silent language that speaks volumes. Only I won't tell her these things because she will forget, like we all do. So we can discover them for ourselves, as we're meant to. So instead, I would simply tell her that she is seen, she is amazing, and she is enough.
Aw, that was beautiful, babe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
like,
loved it. I bawled like a baby the first time I
oh,
heard it. So I was like,
sliding
that
glass.
has to be saved. Yeah, I
Yeah.
always cry. But
No, I
but
think
yeah, it's
that perfectly summarizes, essentially the conversation we were trying to share in the sense of that you are enough, like you are enough. And as a mom, it can feel so challenging to feel like you're enough, but you are. So
yeah, and so many people say it, but one day, like we had this chat. One day you'll look back and wish these days back.
that's right.
So when it gets really hard in your day, try to remember that you'll wish it back one day. Oddly enough.
Well, on that note, babe, thank you for another epic episode. We're sending all our love out to all of our listeners, especially the moms this week.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll catch
The
you next.
moms with sick kiddos, we hear you.
That's right. We got you.
Yeah, we're there. We're living life. All right. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.
Bye.